Under a bruised, ink-black sky, the isolated mansion sat perched like a crown atop the hill, its silhouette etched sharply against the faint glow of distant city lights. The sprawling estate was a fortress of glass and stone, surrounded by a dark forest that swayed restlessly in the growing breeze. Jagged streaks of lightning flickered far beyond the horizon, distant warnings that the night was turning against them. The first low rumbles of thunder rolled across the valley, a deep, rolling growl that vibrated through the earth and whispered of a storm gathering strength. Inside a nondescript black van parked discreetly several hundred yards away, 5 figures moved with practiced calm. The air was thick with anticipation, punctuated only by the soft rustle of equipment and the occasional beep of electronic devices. A man with sharp eyes studied a set of detailed blueprints spread across a makeshift table, tracing the mansion's layout with a gloved finger. Nearby, a woman adjusted a compact jammer, flipping switches and watching a small screen as it hummed quietly to life. Another team member scanned the hacked security feeds on a laptop, his face illuminated by the shifting images of empty hallways and shadowed rooms inside the estate. Radios crackled softly, their voices clipped and methodical. "Alpha ready," one whispered. "Bravo confirms jammer online." Watches were synchronized with precision, each tick aligned perfectly with the next. Fingers tapped screens, final coordinates were double-checked, and last-minute instructions slid between them like whispered secrets. The team's confidence was palpable, their movements fluid and rehearsed down to the second. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling leaves and bending branches. But inside the van, the only sounds were the quiet hums and murmurs of a crew in control. A sudden flash of lightning lit the sky, momentarily revealing the mansion's stark angles and the dense forest surrounding it. The thunder that followed was closer now, sharper, as if the storm itself was drawing a curtain over their well-laid plans. Yet, in the cramped space of the van, the team remained undeterred. Their eyes never wavered from the monitors and maps, their minds locked on the flawless execution ahead. The storm was a distant threat, an unpredictable force they had no time to consider. But outside, the first gusts of wind began to push harder, shaking the trees as the night tightened its grip, an unseen danger inching closer to unravel everything. The tension inside the van thickened as the clock ticked forward, each second pulling them closer to the moment when plans would either fall into place or collapse entirely. Outside, the wind's howl grew louder, rattling the vehicle's frame and reminding everyone that the environment was as much a player in this game as they were. Yet, no one dared to look away from their screens, where every detail mattered: the calculated routes, the shifting patrols, the faintest signal that might betray their presence. As the storm edged nearer, the atmosphere inside became a fragile bubble of focus and anticipation. It was clear that what was about to unfold wouldn't just be another flawless crime. Unseen variables were creeping in, ready to test their precision and resolve. This isn't just a story of plans executed with cold calculation. It's a tale where the unexpected threatens to expose every flaw hidden beneath the surface of perfection. Stick around, because the layers of this operation are far from fully revealed. What seems like control now might unravel in ways none of them foresee, and every moment holds a new twist that reshapes the stakes. The details waiting just ahead will change everything you think you know about what it takes to pull off the impossible. So stay with us. There's much more to come, and you won't want to miss a single turn. The conference room was minimalist: steel table, matte black walls, a single overhead light aimed at a laminated blueprint spread in the center. Around it sat the 5 core members of the team, each methodical, their faces unreadable masks of concentration. This wasn't their first job together. Their past runs, high-stakes corporate infiltrations, a luxury penthouse extraction, a federal evidence grab surfaced only as clipped references, the kind that demanded respect without explanation. At the head sat Marcus Strat Duval, ex-military strategist and the operations leader. His jaw was tight, eyes scanning the blueprint with the precision of a chess master. The magnate's estate was a fortress, but he'd broken down the defenses with cold calculation. Reinforced glass, triple-layered alarm systems, motion sensors wired redundantly, and a private security firm on 24/7 contract. No blind spots, Strat said, tapping a finger on the map where the main entrance met the garden. We hit the west wing. Serves two purposes: fewer cameras and direct access to the vault without crossing the main hall. His voice was low, clipped, controlled. Beside him, Lena Ghost Navarro, the burglar and stealth expert, leaned forward. Her fingers traced the perimeter walls on the blueprint. Years of climbing skyscrapers and slipping through laser grids gave her the edge here. The roof access is clear for our window 10 minutes before the second patrol. Entry through the skylight in the library. No alarms within that sector. She didn't smile, but the slight narrowing of her eyes suggested quiet confidence. Her black gloves rested on the table, fingertips brushing a custom-made grappling hook clipped to her belt. On the opposite side, Max Cypher Lee was already setting up a tablet, fingers flying over the screen as encrypted schematics and live security feeds loaded. The hacker specialized in bypassing security networks and disabling digital systems without leaving a trace. "Firewalls are robust," he said without looking up. "But I've got an override sequence ready. It'll loop the camera feeds for exactly 20 minutes, starting on our signal." His face was calm, almost detached, eyes flicking between code lines and a satellite map. A small earpiece rested in his right ear, linked to every device the team carried. Next to Max sat Jules Will Carver, the getaway driver. His lean frame shifted in the chair, eyes sharp beneath a baseball cap pulled low. Wheel's reputation for high-speed escapes in tight urban environments was well known in their circle. "I've mapped the exit routes. 3 alternate paths, each time to avoid peak security patrols and traffic. The car's prepped with a jammer and silent engine mod. We're out before anyone knows we were there." He tapped a worn key fob, the sound crisp in the quiet room. Last was Simone Link Reyes, the insider contact. Her role was crucial, liaising with the magnate staff and feeding real-time intel. The team had recruited her after a discreet approach to a former assistant rumored to have fallen out with the magnate over unpaid wages. Simone's expression was unreadable, but her eyes held a sharpness born from years navigating corporate politics. "Shift schedules are locked down, but there's a pattern. The night security team rotates every 4 hours, with a brief overlap at 2 o'clock. That's when the vault's monitoring is at its thinnest. Also, I have access codes for the secondary door, emergency exit only. We use it for extraction." Her voice was steady, betraying no hesitation. The target was clear. The vault hidden behind a false wall in the West Wing's basement, containing cash reserves, rare artifacts, some with provenance dating back centuries, and a secured server bank with encrypted backups of sensitive data. The magnate, known for his ruthless business tactics and paranoia, had spared no expense fortifying the estate. Rumors of biometric locks, seismic detectors, and even hidden armed drones made the job appear impossible to outsiders. The team, however, knew the weaknesses, the timing, the gaps. This was a calculated strike, not a gamble. Each member understood their role with exactness. Strat's orders were final. Lena's entry window was narrow. Max's digital cover had to hold. Wheel's timing was inflexible. Simone's intel was the thread tying it all together. Tools were ready. Silent drills, glass cutters, encrypted comms, grappling gear, signal jammers. The room smelled faintly of electronics and metal. No room for error. As the clock ticked down, the team's movements synchronized. Glances exchanged, nods given, no words wasted. They were professionals executing a plan drilled down to seconds and centimeters. The mansion was a fortress, the target nearly unreachable. But they were the specialists who didn't miss. The insider was a contracted systems technician, hired intermittently for upgrades and maintenance on the mansion's integrated security network. Over months, he had slipped unnoticed into the inner workings, quietly extracting digital files and photographs during routine visits. One evening, he handed over a USB drive loaded with critical data, high-resolution blueprints annotated with camera placements, alarm circuitry maps, and a detailed schedule of guard rotations. The files included screenshots from internal monitoring software, revealing exact timings when certain sensors cycled offline for maintenance, and network logs showing when motion detectors were most sensitive. Alongside the digital hall, he provided printed schematics, carefully marked with entry points, wiring conduits, and blind spots in the camera grid. Most valuable was the magnate's travel manifest, pulled from the household calendar app, showing precise arrival and departure times for the upcoming week. The insider had even intercepted a series of encrypted emails outlining temporary changes in security staffing for one particular night. This intelligence gave the team a narrow, predictable window when the mansion's defenses would be weakest. Back at their warehouse, the team transformed a long, dimly lit space into a scaled-down replica of the mansion's main corridors. Using painter's tape on the floor, they mapped out the hallways, doorways, and camera fields of vision as indicated in the insider schematics. Portable cameras were mounted at key angles to simulate surveillance, their lenses revolving on programmed intervals to mimic the mansion's patrol cycles. The team timed their runs repeatedly, each member blindfolded during sections to sharpen spatial awareness and reduce reaction times. Stopwatches clicked in unison as they rehearsed swift, silent transitions from one checkpoint to the next, shaving precious seconds off every move. The hacker demonstrated the jammer device, a compact, custom-built unit designed to emit a frequency-scrambling pulse targeting the mansion's wireless cameras and motion sensors. On a control panel, he set the jammer to activate for exactly 6 minutes, the length of the planned incursion. A small tablet displayed signal strength and interference patterns in real time, confirming how the device would create a temporary dead zone, blinding security systems without triggering alarms. The jammer's battery life was tested repeatedly to ensure it could sustain the blackout without faltering. Communication headsets were distributed, their noise-canceling microphones calibrated to a secure frequency. The leader ran through the synchronized countdown, a precise verbal clock synchronized across all headsets. At T-minus 30 seconds, the jammer would power on. At 0, the breach team would move through the initial entrance. Each phase was broken down into increments. Approach, bypassing the first lock, disabling the secondary alarm, navigating to the vault room, extraction, and escape. The leader repeated the timing aloud while the team followed on their stopwatches, rehearsing coordination down to the millisecond. Contingency plans were laid out methodically. 2 backup vehicles stood ready 5 blocks away, parked in separate alleys to avoid detection. Alternate routes through the garden and service tunnels were mapped with equal precision, complete with timing estimates. Every member knew their role if the jammer failed early or if an unexpected patrol appeared. The plan accounted for forced rerouting, but not for any external chaos. To them, the timing and information formed an unbreakable chain. The mansion's defenses were a system to be outpaced, not gambled against. As practice sessions extended into the night, the team's movements grew more fluid, rehearsed to a mechanical rhythm. The jammer's activation beep, the leader's countdown, the silent signals, all parts meshed into a seamless operation. Every second saved here translated to critical advantage in the real heist. Inside the warehouse, beneath harsh fluorescent lights, the plan became less theory and more execution. A clockwork machine poised to strike precisely when the mansion's eyes were closed. The wind shifted, a subtle change at first, tugging at the edges of their jackets as the team climbed out of the van. Leaves rattled in the nearby trees, a soft whisper in the growing dusk. A fine drizzle began, barely enough to soak through fabric, but enough to make gloves slick against metal and dampen the weight of their gear. Someone muttered about the weather, but it was background noise, part of the environment, not a threat. Thunder rolled low over the valley, distant but steady. The sound swallowed weak radio chatter, forcing them to lean closer to their earpieces, voices dropping to a strained murmur. One of the tech specialists, fingers numb from the cold drizzle, reached up to wipe water streaking down the inside of their goggles. The glass blurred and refocused as they blinked, trying to steady their vision. "Sounds like the storm's rolling in faster than we thought," the hacker said, voice clipped over the comms. Their fingers danced over a handheld device, eyes flicking to a small screen tracking local power grids. Power fluctuations starting in the area. "Could get dicey. Keep monitoring," the leader replied, voice low but firm. "Windows tight. Magnates leaving in less than an hour. We move as planned." The team pressed forward, boots crunching on wet gravel. Rain intensified, shifting from drizzle to steady sheets that hammered down on shoulders and helmets. Water pooled on the brim of their masks, dripping down their backs and soaking into collars. Gloves slipped more often, the slickness making every movement harder to control. Another member tapped their earpiece, adjusting the fit as radio static hissed between transmissions. Ahead, the mansion loomed through the sheets of rain, its broad silhouette cutting against the gray sky. From this distance, everything looked unchanged. Windows lit with a warm yellow glow, security cameras perched like silent sentinels on every corner. The perimeter's electric fence gleamed faintly, strands humming with power beneath the storm's assault. Suddenly, lights flickered. A brief blackout swallowed the windows for a heartbeat. Then the glow returned, steady and bright. The team caught the flicker but exchanged no words, as if acknowledging a warning they weren't ready to heed. The hacker's fingers hovered over controls but didn't move. Power's still holding, the leader confirmed. No changes to the plan. Storm's got us on edge, though, another whispered, voice tight as lightning cracked closer, the flash illuminating the trees with a stark, white light. Thunder followed immediately, louder and rolling through the valley like an approaching freight train. The radio buzzed, voice transmissions breaking apart in the surge of static. The team instinctively slowed, eyes scanning the shadows, muscles tense. Rain plastered their clothes to skin, soaked through layers and chilled the bones. Water dripped from helmet visors, blurring sight lines and forcing brief pauses to wipe the lenses clear. "Check your gear," the leader ordered quietly. No room for mistakes. Hands fumbled with straps and clips, securing wet holsters and adjusting radios dampened by the rain. The world around them shrank to the small pockets of light their flashlights carved out of the darkness. The mansion stayed motionless, an island of quiet normalcy amid the storm's growing fury. Still, the storm pressed in. Gusts bent tree branches overhead, scattering leaves in swirling eddies. The steady rhythm of rain on fabric was punctuated by sharp peals of thunder and the distant crackle of electricity. Shadows flickered in the flood of lightning, shifting and reforming with every burst of light. "Keep it tight," the leader said, voice steady despite the weather's rise. "We're almost in position." No one argued. The tension was palpable, but the plan held them fast. Each step brought them closer to the mansion's walls, closer to the moment when preparation would give way to action. The storm was no longer just background noise. It was a rising force, but the team pushed forward, momentum carrying them through the worsening night. The team moved quickly, slipping through the rusted fence with practiced ease. The rain had lessened to a persistent drizzle, but the wind had picked up, rattling branches and scattering leaves across the lawn. The mansion loomed ahead, its shadowed facade swallowing what little moonlight peeked through the thick clouds. The lead pulled the side gate open silently, signaling the others to follow. The plan was clear through the service entrance, then up the narrow stairwell to the second floor where the target room waited. Without warning, the entire area went dark. The streetlights lining the driveway blinked once, then vanished, their weak orange glow snuffed out like candles in a gust. Mansion windows ceased their faint gleam as internal lights switched off simultaneously. The hum of electricity, the low, constant buzz from security systems and cameras, fell silent. Even the external surveillance cameras froze, their red indicator lights dying in unison. For a split second, the blackout felt like a boon. "No lights, fewer problems," someone muttered, a brief flicker of relief in their voice. But the relief was short-lived. The jammer, perched on a tripod near the side door, powered down abruptly. Its green LEDs winked off, leaving only the cold black box staring back. The hacker's tablet screen flickered, then lost half its feeds. Internal Wi-Fi signals vanished, cutting off access to the mansion's network. Radios sputtered with static, voices overlapping, breaking up into indecipherable bursts. "Echo, come in." The leader's voice cracked through the static, but the reply was fragmented, swallowed by interference. "Signals gone. Repeat, signals down," someone shouted. Flashlights snapped on, sharp beams piercing the black like surgical knives. The team adjusted quickly, training their lights on the immediate path ahead. The storm's roar filled the void left by the dead electronics. Wind howled through the trees, rain drummed against the walls, and somewhere inside, the distant rumble of thunder rolled through the night. The absence of mechanical sound made everything feel unnervingly isolated. The first hallway stretched ahead, its walls now swallowed by darkness except where flashlight beams danced. The leader motioned forward, voice clipped. "Stay tight. Watch corners." They moved room to room, each step measured and deliberate. The first door on the left was the study, empty, silent. The flashlight beams swept over the polished wood floor and dusty bookshelves, catching glimpses of overturned chairs and scattered papers. No sign of the security detail. Down the corridor, a side door led to the kitchen. The team paused as a faint drip echoed somewhere in the shadows. The hacker crouched briefly, fingers brushing a control panel, but the screen remained dead. "No power," he reported quietly. The leader nodded and pushed the door open, revealing the cold, dark space. Cabinets loomed like silent sentinels. The team moved through, careful not to make noise, their flashlights cutting through the gloom. They ascended the narrow service stairwell in single file, the wooden steps creaking softly beneath their boots. The blackout had turned the familiar layout into a maze. Without the soft glow of emergency lighting, spatial awareness was harder to maintain. At the top, the hallway stretched away, punctuated only by the shifting beams of their flashlights. The storm's fury pressed in from the windows at the far end, rain lashing against the glass. "Check your sectors," the leader ordered. "No surprises." The team split, clearing rooms methodically. The first door opened onto a guest bedroom, empty, dark, the bed stripped of sheets. The next was a bathroom. The mirror reflected their flashlights in fractured shards. Movement was slow but steady, the tension mounting with every step. Suddenly, a radio burst crackled sharply. "ING, cut out. Can anyone?" The message died mid-sentence. The hacker cursed under his breath, tapping the tablet in frustration. Without power and network access, their usual advantages evaporated. They were forced to rely on drills and instincts. A faint sound, metal scraping against stone, made the leader freeze mid-step. "Quiet. Everyone stop." The team held position, flashlights locked on the hallway's dark end. Another scrape, closer this time. The leader whispered, "Eyes sharp. We're not alone." The blackout had stripped away their electronic eyes, but the team was far from blind. They adjusted their positions, weapons raised, flashlights steady. The mansion, once a fortress of technology and control, was now a silent, blackened labyrinth. The storm outside roared louder, matching the pounding of their hearts as they pressed forward, step by cautious step. A sudden, searing flash split the sky, momentarily overwhelming the night. Lightning struck with brutal precision, hitting a transformer pole just beyond the estate's perimeter. The impact sent a visible shockwave rippling through the humid air, accompanied by a deep, resonant boom that vibrated through the ground. The electrical surge that followed wasn't contained by the primary grid. Instead, it found a path through the estate's backup power lines and emergency circuits, sending an unexpected pulse of current through the otherwise dormant infrastructure. Inside the mansion, behind walls thick with insulation and layers of security hardware, hidden service panels flickered to life. Tiny LEDs, previously dark and inert, blinked on with a staccato rhythm, their faint glow signaling a brief but critical reboot of internal systems. The sudden influx of electricity energized circuits long offline, causing some of the internal security cameras to restart. Cameras mounted in key corridors, their lenses coated with dust and shadows, powered up with a low mechanical hum. The image feeds cut in and out, flickering between static interference and intermittent frames. A camera in the East Wing corridor came online first, its infrared sensors activating and casting a dim, eerie glow. The lens adjusted, focusing sharply on a masked figure moving cautiously through the hallway. Another camera near the main staircase shuddered before stabilizing, catching fragmented glimpses of shadows shifting behind a paneled wall. The footage was inconsistent, jittery frames interspersed with moments of total blackness, but enough to register movement. The camera's internal motion detectors triggered, flagging these brief bursts of activity. Far from the estate, in an off-site security operations center, monitors blinked awake in response to the unexpected input. A third-party security company's server received the data stream seconds after the surge passed through the estate's backup lines. The server's logs registered a sudden, signal-restored event, time-stamped precisely to the lightning strike. Automated protocols kicked in, new footage was automatically archived into a secure database, and the system's AI flagged the recordings as suspicious due to detected movement during what should have been a complete blackout. Technicians in the remote facility glanced at the monitors in confusion. Several camera feeds showed intermittent frames of dark hallways and obscured figures, their presence unmistakable despite the brief and unreliable footage. The backup systems, designed to overcome loss of primary power, had unexpectedly reactivated just long enough to capture evidence. The security company's alert system quietly sent notifications to designated contacts, though no immediate response was triggered on site. Inside the mansion, the team remained unaware of the partial restoration. Their handheld devices still displayed static or low battery warnings. Communications channels remained spotty, providing no indication that any surveillance had resumed. The assumption of complete invisibility persisted, reinforcing their tactics and movements. They continued to navigate the dark interior as if the security network was dead, unaware that their every step was being recorded in fits and starts. This brief, unintended system reboot created a dangerous blind spot in their operational security. The cameras, inconsistent but functional enough, had captured crucial visual data: masked figures, weapon outlines, and directional movement. The backup system's logs and flagged footage now existed remotely, stored in encrypted servers far beyond the team's reach or knowledge. For a few critical minutes, the mansion's security apparatus was not entirely compromised but silently documenting the intruders. The lightning strike had reawakened dormant circuits, reactivating select nodes in the estate's surveillance grid. This electrical surge was transient but sufficient to breach the blackout's totality. In the silence of the darkened mansion, the team's belief in their invisibility was shattered in reality, though not yet in perception. The cameras were watching again, capturing the very presence they thought had vanished from the system. The corridor stretched ahead, a narrow tunnel of cold, glossy tiles slick with a thin film of water from the leaking pipes overhead. The team moved cautiously, each step measured but urgent, boots pressing softly against the slippery floor. Their gloves, damp from sweat and condensation, clung loosely to their fingers. The safecracker's hands trembled slightly as he pulled off a glove to better handle the delicate instruments necessary to bypass the vault's final lock. His bare fingers, slick and slicker still from the humidity trapped within the mansion's walls, struggled to maintain a grip on the small picks and wires. The leader's voice cut sharply through the near silence, a whispered command that barely rose above the pounding of blood in their ears. "Faster, we're running out of time." The words were meant to steady the team, but instead, they jolted the safecracker. His fingers twitched, muscles tightening and then slipping. The flashlight, a compact but heavy cylinder of black metal, felt suddenly alien in his grasp. It happened in fragmentary slow motion. The flashlight wobbled loose, slipping between his sweaty fingers. It twisted midair, a brief arc of black against the deeper shadows. Then, with a harsh metallic clatter, it hit the tile floor. The sound echoed sharply down the empty corridor, louder than any voice, sharper than any whispered order. The flashlight bounced once, twice, spinning erratically, catching a stray glimmer of residual power from the emergency lights that still flickered faintly at the far end. It rolled forward, the beam flickering weakly, searching for its final resting place. Time seemed to stretch, breath caught in throats, muscles frozen in place. The cylinder came to rest at the worst angle imaginable, angled upward just enough to slice a narrow column of bright, white light straight into the faces of the team. The harsh beam threw their features into sharp relief, casting deep shadows that revealed every line, every bead of sweat, every flicker of panic in their eyes. At the corridor's end, the dome camera, once dark and inert, now blinked alive. A faint red LED glowed steadily, its presence a silent judge in the gloom. The camera's lens, glinting like a cold, unblinking eye, locked onto the illuminated faces. The team's eyes instinctively shifted upward, meeting the red beacon with a collective, horrified realization. The hacker's voice hissed through the radio, urgent and low. Feeds just came back online. They're recording. A hand shot up instinctively, fingers pressing against a cheek, a forehead, trying to shield what was already exposed. But the damage was immediate and irreparable. Multiple frames were captured, crystal-clear images sharp enough for facial recognition software, clear enough for anyone watching to identify every member of the crew. No words were spoken, only the heavy, ragged breath of the trapped and the faint, unyielding glow of the recording light. The corridor held its silence again, but the air was thick with the knowledge that everything had just been lost in a single small mistake. The flashlight lay still, a brutal beacon betraying them all. Static crackled sharply through the radios as the first sirens wailed faintly in the distance, an unmistakable warning that the reactivated security system had triggered a full alert. "They've got us on camera," the leader hissed, voice tight, barely audible over the storm's howl and the overlapping chatter in the comms. "Abort! Abort! We've been compromised." But the response was fractured and frantic. "Wait, no, we're already inside. We finish this now." Another voice snapped, urgency cutting through the chaos, but static swallowed half the words. "If we pull out now, all this is for nothing." The leader's grip tightened on the radio. "We don't have time. Sirens are closing in fast. We move or we get caught." Branches thrashed violently against the side of the building as the wind increased, rain slapping like a relentless drum. Flashlights bobbed erratically in the darkness, reflections scattered by the sheets of water and the slick sheen on every surface. The team scrambled toward the nearest exit, but the storm had thrown more than just noise at them. Ahead, a massive tree, uprooted by the gusts just minutes before, lay sprawled across their planned escape route. The thick trunk blocked their path completely, jagged limbs snagged on fencing and torn metal debris. "Blocked!" someone shouted, breath short and panicked. "We'll have to find another way." The leader barked orders, but the radios were chaos. Voices overlapped, some distorted by the intermittent static caused by the storm's electrical interference. "South gate, no, wait, jammed!" Another shout. The side gate, which had swung open smoothly during rehearsals, now hung crooked, warped by fallen debris. Attempts to force it open were met with grinding resistance and a metallic groan. "Slippery! Watch your step!" someone warned, voice strained. The ground had turned to mud on the steep slope leading down from the building's rear exit, slick and treacherous. A member slipped, knees hitting the wet earth hard, a sharp cry cutting through the storm. "Knees bad. Can't put weight on it?" the injured whispered, voice edged with pain and frustration. "No time to stop," the leader snapped, but there was hesitation now. Panting breaths mingled with the howling wind, every movement slower, uncertain. In the scramble, a backpack caught on a jagged branch and was torn free, falling to the muddy ground with a dull thud. "My pack," the owner's voice cracked. "It's got the tools, the hard drives." "No, leave it," the leader snapped, but the team was already moving, fear pushing them forward. The sounds of sirens grew louder, closer, the wail weaving through the pounding rain. Visibility was near zero. Flashlights flickered under the storm's assault, casting wild shadows that distorted every shape. Voices collided again on the radios, overlapping commands, some unclear, others desperate. "Go east, no west. The fence? Gone down. Tunnels flooded. Can't use it. Split up. Regroup at the rendezvous." The leader's mind raced, trying to process the barrage of conflicting information while the storm seemed to conspire against them, every obstacle amplifying the pressure. The team staggered through mud and debris, branches scraping against clothing and exposed skin. The storm's fury distorted sound. Sirens echoed oddly, sometimes distant, sometimes alarmingly close, impossible to judge. The radios buzzed with static bursts, cutting out critical instructions, leaving only fragments of communication. Amid the chaos, the leader made a hard decision. Cut the loss. Pull back. The words were barely audible over the storm, but the urgency was unmistakable. Forget the objective. We move now, all of us. No one left behind. Some members hesitated, glancing back toward the building, toward the prize slipping away. But the storm drowned out hesitation. Survival overrode everything. The retreat became a ragged, desperate march through blocked paths, slick slopes, and rising fear. With every step, the meticulously planned operation unraveled further. Tools lost, routes inaccessible, and the relentless storm turning precision into panic. The perfect plan dissolved into a fight just to get out alive. Following the aborted operation, security analysts immediately began a thorough review of the reactivated surveillance system. Although the initial blackout had disabled the cameras, the unexpected storm caused a power fluctuation that triggered a partial reboot of the security network. This restart captured a brief but crucial sequence. The moment when a flashlight beam illuminated the hallway, revealing partial but identifiable facial features and distinctive gear worn by several intruders. These images, though fleeting and obscured by shadows, provided sufficient detail for forensic enhancement specialists to extract usable stills. These still images became the cornerstone for cross-referencing with external sources. License plate recognition software was employed to analyze vehicles seen near the estate during the storm window. Roadside cameras along the primary escape routes, many of which were compromised due to flooding and debris, registered several vehicles matching the thieves' descriptions and license plates. Notably, CCTV footage from gas stations and intersections in the surrounding area depicted anxious drivers with wet clothing and hurried movements, consistent with individuals fleeing through adverse weather. These observations helped establish a timeline and sequence of the thieves' movements as they attempted to evade capture. The storm's impact extended beyond the physical environment. The heavy rain and wind not only sabotaged the electronic jammer designed to disrupt communications within the estate, but also severely hindered the thieves' escape plan. Key roads were rendered impassable, forcing the group to abandon their primary routes and take secondary, less secure paths. These alternative routes were more exposed to surveillance and law enforcement patrols, increasing the likelihood of detection. Several team members suffered injuries or experienced mechanical failures, such as broken-down vehicles, which led to quick apprehensions. One suspect was found stranded after a vehicle skid on a mud-covered incline, while another was detained following a minor accident near a rural checkpoint. For those who initially evaded immediate capture, investigative teams employed digital forensics to trace their communications. Phone records, text messages, and contact logs were meticulously analyzed, revealing connections to safe houses and known criminal associates. Data triangulation pinpointed locations where suspects regrouped or sought refuge, enabling coordinated raids and arrests over subsequent days and weeks. This multi-layered approach gradually dismantled the network behind the attempted heist. During interrogation, investigators presented the suspects with printed stills taken from the estate's security footage. Specifically, the illuminated faces captured in the hallway during the brief camera reboot. This visual evidence, combined with physical proofs such as recovered tools and stolen items, was instrumental in securing confessions and clarifying the sequence of events. The suspects' accounts confirmed the investigators' reconstruction of the storm's disruptive role in their plan. Internal reports from the case emphasized the unusual interplay between human precision and natural disruption. The operation's initial execution demonstrated meticulous planning and coordination, yet the unforeseen severity of the storm introduced unpredictable variables that ultimately led to its failure. The storm's interference with electronic systems and the forced deviation from planned escape routes provided law enforcement with critical advantages. These factors collectively transformed what might have been a flawless crime into a protracted investigation culminating in multiple arrests. The case was subsequently incorporated into training modules for security analysts and criminal investigators, serving as a practical example of how environmental factors can decisively influence outcomes in high-stakes operations. Detailed timelines, Forensic evidence and communication analyses were compiled to illustrate the procedural steps that led from initial detection to eventual resolution. This methodical documentation underscored the importance of integrating natural elements into risk assessments and response strategies in both security planning and criminal investigations. The international team's plan was as close to flawless as one could imagine. Every camera angle mapped, guard rotations timed to the minute, access codes memorized, and escape routes rehearsed. Inside information gave them an edge few could match. Yet, amid all their preparation and control, one element remained entirely outside their grasp: the weather. That night, a sudden storm rolled in, shifting the entire trajectory of events in a way no amount of intelligence could predict. The lightning strike triggered a citywide blackout, instantly plunging the area into darkness. This unexpected event disabled the jamming devices crucial to keeping the security cameras offline. As power flickered back on, the cameras rebooted just in time to capture the faint glow of a flashlight accidentally dropped by one of the operatives. That single, small slip shattered their invisibility. The exposure forced a chaotic retreat, dismantling the escape plan that was meticulously crafted over weeks. The team's once confident exit turned into a desperate scramble, leaving behind clues that investigators would later trace with precision. What began as a perfect crime unraveled through a straightforward, logical chain. Storm, blackout, jammer failure, camera reboot, flashlight drop, exposure, failed escape, and finally, a thorough investigation. This sequence wasn't the result of chance or mysticism, but a series of real, tangible failures sparked by one uncontrollable factor. The very element they underestimated, the unpredictable weather, became the catalyst that dismantled their entire operation. If a team armed with the best information and preparation could be undone by something as simple as a storm, it begs the question: what other invisible variables might derail even the most carefully laid plans? If you found this breakdown intriguing, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Perfect Crimes Gone Wrong. Stay with us for more cases where tiny, overlooked details bring down what seemed like perfect operations. Click on the next video to see how a single misstep can turn a flawless plan into a spectacular failure.